Well, hello again. Welcome back to part 2 of this Emerson 23. Previously, I thought it would take 2 to 3 videos to do this. It's probably going to take 4. Depending on how much I jibber-jabber, plus whatever we run into on the video itself. Why is this thing going out of focus? Come on, you. There you go. My camera. I think I'm about ready to buy another camera here. Maybe I should do that. Or hold it a little bit closer. It might not, it's difficult to focus on white. These little Sonys, they just have a lot of bloggy touch. They have a lot of problems with that. Anyway, and where was I? Yeah, we're going to go ahead today, and we're going to, dive right back into it. But there's some things I want our newbie friends to know before we do that. This is very important to you guys. This series is for newbies, and that's not a derogatory term. It means a guy that has never done it, wants to do it. A guy who has done it, but it just didn't turn out right, and he didn't know very much about it, and there was no one there to help him and everything, and he didn't have time to really continue to pursue it. He had to get on to other things like earning a living, that sort of thing. And then there's the kind that, I'd like to just do it one time. If I could just get a radio to do one time and know how to do it and get some sound out of it and make it play, that would probably be it for me, and that would be nice. I'd like to be able to give that a shot. For that category, I warn you, you get one to play, and it won't be your last, trust me. You always want to try one more. Okay, let me give some advice to you. For any of those guys, or any of those in the peripheral area of what I just described, don't get a large chassis or a large radio as your first project. There's no need for that, Start out small. I started out with a larger chassis. It wasn't all that big. It was a Airline 62198. It had a wooden cabinet to it and everything. But, I just didn't have anybody to lead me around at the time, so I went ahead and picked it, and then I went looking for the Antique Radio Forum, and I started asking them questions. I asked a couple of questions to Rick McWhorter of All American 5 Radio, that sort of thing. And then I began to realize, I probably should have just started out on a small chassis without the cabinet and all that other stuff. Fortunately for me, it all turned out good. But my recommendation to you is you don't have to spend a lot of money to start out in our hobby. You don't need a lot of test equipment. You don't need all that crap. And I would highly recommend that you start out with a small chassis. Now, all you have to do is type in vintage radio chassis in eBay. That's all you got to do. And you will see chassis. Normally they're in the $24, $25 range. A lot of them have or make offer. That's what mine was. The one this Emerson, I think he wanted $23 or $24. I offered him $15. He took it. Worked out great. Of course, you can't do anything about the shipping. You got to pay it no matter what. But there's a whole string of these things. There's one for $21. There's one for $15. Here's one with a cabinet for $40. Stay away from the cabinet business for your very first radio. Just get yourself something you can easily work on. You don't have to worry about the cabinet unless you're just a glutton for punishment. Here's one, $21, $18. There's a whole string of them, $19. You can find there's a lot of them here, a lot of them. So now here's a Philco. He doesn't know what this is, but I do. It's a Philco. It looks to me like a 610 or 620. Of course, since she's got 1, 2, 3, 4 tubes, and maybe a fifth one hidden down there somewhere. But no matter which one you choose as your first radio, if you decide to go this way, here's the advice that's very important for you. 1, don't buy one that does not have a transformer, a power transformer. It's got to have a power transformer. See that right there? That's the power transformer. It's got to have one like that somewhere on the chassis. It's got electrical cord, and it goes into a power transformer. Very, very important. If it does not have a power transformer, and it's from the 1930s, it'll probably be, or most likely will be, what they call a curtain burner. A curtain burner. A lot of houses burned down from those curtain burners. Essentially what it amounted to was the electrical cord had a resistor in it that ran the entire length of the cord all the way up to the chassis body, and it hooked underneath there, and it was drawing a lot of current, and the cord would get very, very hot. And because of all that current going through it, it was a stupid design. Underwriter Laboratories would have a ball with that one today. But anyway, it caught fire. Sometimes they had these things up near curtains on a table or something, and it may have only happened one time. It didn't matter. But the claim was by guys who purchased it, women and men, that it would set the curtains on fire, burn the house down. And it did burn several houses down. You know, so you want to stay away from that. So, because the curtain burners had no transformers on them, no power transformers. You don't want that. You can always tell a curtain burner cord because it's about twice as brown as my pencil, because it's got that resistor running all the way. It's a kind of a resistive foil kind of stuff. I've never really looked at it. I've seen pictures of it. But it's some kind of a resistive metal foil of some kind. And you don't want that. So stay away from the curtain burners. Stay away from the heavy tube chassis. Get something small, you know, and to start out with, you know, and make sure, if possible, you know, don't get in any hurry. Take your time to pick one. There's no rush. You know, they're not going to go anywhere. And try to get one that's got the tubes in it. Save you some money, but you don't know if they're going to work or not. Now here's one right here. Now, that's a Stewart Warner. That's not bad. I don't particularly care for that one. My recommendation is further that you get either an Airline, which is the old Montgomery Ward radios, or a Silvertone, which was the old Sears Roebuck radios. Okay? Now there's plenty of others. You can get a Philco if you want. And there's plenty of others that'll work down. Now here's a Philco right here. It's got those Lochtel type of tubes in it. Lochtel means they lock in. You got to kind of, they go in, you got to kind of snap them down. They go snap, and they lock in. Just the way the tube socket was built. Go through it, pick out one. That curtain burner cord, by the way, supplies the voltage to the tube filaments to make them light up. And the transformer normally cut that down, and on the secondary of the power transformer, it would supply the voltage. Well, you don't have the power transformer there, so they had to use the power cord with the resistor in it. You don't want that. Do not, I can't recommend it enough, do not buy a chassis that has no transformer. Secondly, do not, and my recommendation again is do not buy a battery operated radio. You know, what they used to call the old farm radios. You'd have to build a power supply for it and all this other crap. You don't need it. For your first radio, to just try to mess around and learn something and get it going, you know, you want something simple, something easy with a power transformer. You don't need some large monstrous thing, even though, you know, you'd be tempted to get one. Now here's an Emerson 108. Of course, that's $61. That's a bid. Try to find one that's a buy it now, you know. There's another Philco right here. This is $620. I rebuilt one of those. They play really good. Anyway, that's my advice on that. Before we move on to the next segment here, there's a couple of YouTubers I want to acknowledge. The one is, of course, Buzz1151, you know, and I'm really jealous of the guy. I'm getting more and more jealous as days go by. Not because he might be better looking. Yeah, fat chance on that. Anyway, he's been doing some very, very good radio restorations here lately. I'm proud of him, 100%. I just want him to know and everybody else to know. I kid him a lot on his, after he puts up a video, but if I didn't like his videos, trust me, and his radio repair, I would not be watching them, but I watch him every single time. So Buzz1151, kudos. If you have never watched Buzz1151, he's up in the Portland, Oregon area. If you've never watched one of his videos and you're interested in radio repair, go there. Go to his videos and watch any one of them. It doesn't matter. They're very informative. They're very they captivate your interest. You can't really pull away from one. He does an excellent job. I remember the day he started out, and he's improved what? My God, 20-30%. Anyway, he's improved much more than that. Trust me. All right, that's enough glory time for Buzz. The next one is, I think it's Frank. He made a comment in my last video. He said, eat those Cheetos or get them out of the way. He has a love-hate relationship with Cheetos because he said he doesn't need the calories. All right, I told him I would honor his wishes. You're very good, Frank. You should try some. By the way, I saw something on a YouTube video the other day, and it occurred to me, why haven't I been doing this? It was so obvious, I didn't do it. He took one of these deformable lamps, reformable, deformable, I can't remember what they call them, they're LEDs. They got those 4 blades that you can bend them down, and they'll shine in any direction. And they go up, they go down. And he put it on his bench as a light, and I said, now that is a good idea. I've always said if I see a good idea, I try to implement it. So we got a lot more light here this time. I think it's fabulous. All right, let's get going. What kind of test equipment do you need to fix a radio like this? Do you need all that other stuff that most people have on their bench, you know, piled up to the ceiling? The answer is no. All you need really to fix a radio like this is a multimeter. That's it, whether it be analog, the kind with the needle, or the digital, which is this. Analog or digital multimeter, that's all you need. There was a guy in the Antique Radio Forum years ago. He fixed radios for I don't know how many years. Everybody was talking about, you know, getting this signal generator and that signal tracer and all this crap. And he popped in and he said, hey guys, I don't understand this. He said, I've been fixing these radios for 30, 40 years, and all I ever used was a multimeter. Didn't matter whether it was a big radio or a small radio. Of course, he had a lot of experience under his belt. So, yeah, he could use a multimeter quite easily. He knew exactly where to go for certain things, and he'd probably fix it in 5 minutes, which would take the newbie, you know, 5 weeks, you know. But still, all you really need is this. But I recommend you get a isolation transformer, small one, maybe a 2-plug, that's what I got, and a variac, which you can vary the voltage coming in. And then you plug your radio into your variac. You hook your variac, you plug your variac into your isolation transformer. You plug your isolation transformer into the wall. I went a different route. I built a box and plugged it in up here. Same thing. You can plug it in right there. That cord right there is connected up to this box. That's the only difference. But all you need is a multimeter. We're going to crank up here by putting a cover on our speaker. Last video I showed you where it was cracked and broken. We don't want it to be any worse than it is. If you don't cover this thing up, well, you cover it up with any old piece of cardboard, just draw a circle that'll fit. I have several of these things, different sizes I've collected over the years. If you don't cover it, you will run your finger through the cone on this speaker, guaranteed. Your thumb will go through it, whether it be from the rear or the front. You will make things worse. Even then, once you get the front covered, the chances are you could go in through a hole in the back accidentally. Just got to be careful, that's all. It's all repairable. But I'm going to cover this baby up just like that, protect it. And that's all it takes. Just make sure she's covered up. Well, the first thing we're going to do is get rid of this piece of crap. It's in my way. Some guy put it on there prior to me owning it. Not needed, it's got to go. Well, now that we have the terminals cleaned off, the wires disconnected, we can pretty much see what's going on here. Or can we? Can we really see what's going on here? What we have here is a ground wire. This is a bare wire hooked and soldered right here. That's a ground point right there. And that was originally soldered right here. Okay. Now we've got a black wire coming from underneath that's attached to the ground. And that wire was originally soldered here. Well, just to prove to you that it's a ground, we're going to go ahead and put a gator on there. Then I'll touch, I just got it gator wired. And then we're going to touch it and see, watch my meter, see if we got a ground here. First I got to get a good scratchy. I got to get a good scratchy point where I can, there we go. See it? That's a ground wire. Alright, so what we had here before I tore it all apart, before somebody tore it all apart, was a ground wire hooked to this pin right here, and a ground wire hooked to this pin right here. Ground wire, which all three of these wires were originally connected to there. Well, what's the deal on that? Let me show you on the schematic. This is the Viome Control I just showed you. We've seen it before. There's a ground wire connected to this end. There's a ground wire connected to that end. And there's a ground wire connected to the wiper. What? How can anything work? Forget the wiper. How come it's got a ground wire on both sides? How's this supposed to work? The antenna, you know, the antenna signal is supposed to come in and go through here to the Viome Control. It doesn't. It goes right to ground. Or let's say it went through. Where would it go here? To ground again before it even got to the cathode on the 6A7. No. So essentially what we have is a ground wire to ground wire. Something's not right here, people. Okay, let's take a little closer look at our Viome Control here. Now you remember I told you the black part back here, this is just our on-off switch. It's got two terminals, one here, one here, one here, one here. And you can see that they've been tampered with. A little closer here. You know, they've been tampered with. That's some crap there. I wish I could get a better focus here. There we go. Now let's take a look at the top up here. What is that? What's that writing there underneath these tabs? 2 megohms. See it? 2 megohms. That's very bad, very bad. Let's go back to our schematic. Our Viome Control is 75,000 ohms from end to end. 2 megohms is 2 million ohms. Okay, so what's the deal here? Well, it's pretty clear to me. Well, it's pretty obvious. This is not the original Viome Control and on-off switch. It could be that the original one burned out. It was bad, so they replaced it with this 2 meg. Yeah, I think what happened was that the one that was in there was too small for use with what they wanted. They probably were going to use it with a turntable like Brendan, my mentor, said, or something like that. It was just too small, or they tried to use it and it burned out, and they replaced it with this 2 meg. And they had to cut this off and do a bunch of other little jury rigs here to get it to work. So now we know where we're at. This is not the original. We're going to have to do something about it. So what do? We fix it. That's what we do. We fix it. That's what we're here to do. We're here to fix this thing, not to stare at it and whimper and snivel and all that sort of crap. What I decided to do here was to go ahead and remove the potentiometer and the on-off switch together. It just slides in along this thing right here on screws, and it just slides right in there. Not all do that, by the way. Some of them are just holes, but this was kind of neat to have that like that. The reason they did that was so close to the power transformer. Anyway, my idea was to tape it down like so. The switch, you know, was probably good. Or if it wasn't, I could loosen it up somehow. These old switches have a tendency to lock up after they've been sitting for years. Sometimes you can get a little WD-40 down in there, a little contact spray, let them sit for a while, and eventually they'll come loose. And you don't always have access to do that. Sometimes you have to drill a little tiny hole. Like this is plastic, okay? This is metal, this is plastic. Sometimes you got to drill a little tiny hole down in there and squirt that stuff in there. I've done that. Most of the time it'll be a failure, but it has happened to where it fixed it, and I was happy about that. So I was going to go ahead and tape it off to the side here, and then just use the on-off switch here, and then put a 100K pot, or pot, that's what they call a potentiometer, a 100,000 ohm potentiometer in that hole, tighten it down, and then hook up these wires to it, and then I'd still have control here for volume, and then I'd still have an on-off switch for over here. Well, my mentor didn't like that idea at all, you know, which I couldn't figure that one out. I didn't see a thing wrong with it. And I have a 100K pot out in the garage somewhere. I just need to find it. And, you know, so we talked about it for a while. I got to tell you guys, let me tell you how it is with mentors. At some point in time, you know, you've got to throw a little tough love on these guys. You know, they get pretty forceful, and they want you to do this, and they won't get off of it. And he wanted me to buy a brand new pot, just like this one, that had the potentiometer and the on-off switch in there. Get rid of this whole mess and put a brand new pot in here. Well, you know, I decided, hey, it's time to put my foot down. After a long discussion, he said, this is what you need to do, get it done. And I decided what I'm going to do is put a new potentiometer in there with a on-off switch on the back. And he'll see that, and I hope he's learned his lesson. Well, that's the way she's going to look, folks. We're going to go ahead and I'll have to take it back out, of course, because I've got to unsolder these two wires on the back of this mess, on the back of this switch, and put them on the back of this one. But this ground wire here, the black one, will go to the center wiper, and these two here will go on there with the resistor between. We'll show you why that resistor has to be there in the next video. And this side over here will likely, if it's hooked up the way I think it is, if the way that the thing is, here's a switch, nice strong switch, I like that. The antenna should go to this end. If not, then we'll switch them the opposite direction. You know, these wires here will go over here, the antenna wire will go over there. It doesn't matter. It's no big deal. It's a piece of cake. We are very flexible. Yes, we are. So since the video is getting a little bit long, we'll go ahead and pick this up later. So until next time. This is John.